Hi, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are joining us for this event. Trust you had a wonderful day and trust you had a wonderful day and you've been having a wonderful time. I am Okey Udeichi, the banks of expert. We've been having series of these conversations regarding the bounce up process. The last two sessions, one we talked about unmasking failure. And then the next one we did was we demystified fear. Today, we are looking into identity. Identity is a very important aspect of the bounce up process because when someone doesn't know who he is, there's tendency that every name you give the person, he will answer that name. But if someone actually knows who he or she is, when situations arise, you can tell those situations, this is not me. Have you ever felt stuck, lost, or like you were meant to do more? Have you ever found yourself in a situation whereby deep inside, you know from the depth of your heart that you're supposed to do more? That this is not the real you, that the real you is somewhere. You look at it inside your heart, you're wondering, but this is not me. This is not me. I am meant to do more. Well, today we are going to dive deep into one of those foundations and the things that are responsible for it. And that's why understanding your identity is very, very important because sometimes we allow situations to determine who we are. Sometimes we allow situations to tell us who we are. But the truth of the matter is that that's not really who we are. Our lives are far better than what the experiences are dictating. Many people are focusing on bouncing back from setbacks without knowing who they truly are. They return to the old struggles or never maximize the potential that is hidden in the crisis or adversity. Many people don't know that there's a higher calling on their lives to bounce up as against bounce back. By the end of this session, you see how understanding your true identity can shift everything. Your business, your career, your finances, your marriage, your health, even your spiritual life. Looking back to what happened to me many years ago, life turned and turned and turned and turned me, and it got to a point that I started questioning who I really was. I started asking myself, who am I? Because it got to a point that about 10 years after graduation from university, I wasn't sure of the next meal. I didn't have I didn't have accommodation, moving from one place to the other. And then along the line, I went to Abuja to do a presentation. And when I finished my presentation, I was stranded. I didn't have money to come back to Lagos, my base. And that particular day, I remember vividly, it was a Tuesday. It was in the afternoon around 2 p.m. Why I'm telling you, giving you these details is because there are experiences you have and they remain in your heart. I was lying down on the foam that my host has put on the floor. The ceiling fan was turning and turning. And I was waiting for him to come back and give me 2,500 naira to come back to Lagos. This was around 2002, 2001. And it was at that point that I started asking myself questions. What is really wrong with me? what's really happening, you know, that this wasn't what I bargained for. This wasn't what I thought my life was going to be all about. It was at that point that a thought dropped in my heart. Have you ever considered your second name? And I asked, my second name, what's special about my second name? Because I'm from the southeastern part of Nigeria, I'm Igbo. My parents gave me the second name, Wambueze. And Wambueze means the son that is the king. And so this kind of conversations you have with yourself. I said, yes, my second name is Wambueze, and this is what it really means. I can see Lawrence. Lawrence, you're welcome. It's glad to have you here. And I said, so what's special about that? Told me that this is who you are. And I laughed. And I told myself, I can't be Wambueze and I am lying down here waiting for my host, Okey Abuja, to give me 2,500 naira to go back to Lagos. That is not possible. That the difference between Wambueze and where I am today, that there's no room for comparison. He said, but that is who you really are. At that point, I began to ask myself, who is a king? What do kings do? Kings are solution providers. Kings are the answers to prayers in the heart of man. Whenever things arise, situations arise in the lives of people, they go to a man of authority because they know that he has the capacity to answer them. I thought about this. And then, in my heart, I began to think about it. Udeichi, you're highly welcome. Thank you for being here. I am glad you're here to listen to this teaching. So identity is not just what you do. It is who you are at the core. What your creator has called you to do, be. Many people define themselves by titles, careers, or achievements. But identity goes far deeper than that. Identity goes far deeper than that. In Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, the prophet was having a conversation with the Lord. And then the Lord told him that before you were born, before you were even planted in your mother's womb, he says, I knew you. Jeremiah said, oh, I am only a child. He said, I've ordained you as a prophet unto the nations. In John 11:25, Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. So Jesus knew who he was. And that was why when the enemy came to tempt him and say, if you are the Son of God, turn the stone into loaves. He didn't have any issue about his identity. And to him, turning the stone to loaves wasn't an issue because he knew who he was. So I ask you, who are you? Because life is going to ask you questions at different times, at different points. Understanding of who you are at each point will determine how far you go. Your identity is God ordained. It existed before your struggles, before your failures or your successes. Your failures or your successes are not who you are. Your identity is intact. Because you remember that even when Joseph was in Potiphar's house, his identity as a leader was intact. When he moved from Potiphar's house to the prison, his identity was intact. Circumstances didn't determine who he was. And that was why his work attitude, his work ethics was excellent. He did things the way he was supposed to do them, not minding where he had found himself. And so there are some common identity crises that we see, tying identity to past failures or successes. That is one of the identity crises that we see all around. Looking for validation from others. Some people want others to validate them that this is this, that is this. Confusing identity with roles. A lot of people confuse their identity with their roles. Example, I'm a CEO versus I am a solution provider. The CEO is the solution provider. So a lot of people confuse their identity with their roles, forgetting the fact that roles are subject to change, but your identity remains the same. So why is identity very important in your bounce up journey? That will have to take out time to look at it. When you know who you are, you recover faster from setbacks because you understand that failure does not define you. Identity determines resilience. Identity determines resilience. When you know who you are, you know that whatever setback, whatever adversity or crisis is subject to change. Identity unlocks purposes and confidence. Many are stuck because they are building careers, businesses, or even relationships on false identity, such that when the boat is rocked, you see them struggling. We look at Moses, he struggled with identity until God affirmed him as a deliverer. You look at the case of Esther, Mordecai had to bring to his remembrance, told him, look, you might be in the kingdom for such a time like this. We looked at Gideon the other day, a mighty man of valor, running from the Midianites. And so that's why identity is very important. Your identity positions you for favor and success. Your identity positions you for favor and for success. Doors open faster when you operate in the identity God gave you, rather than trying to fit into someone else's mold. A case in point is when David wanted to confront Goliath, and Saul gave him his own armor. He tried it on, and said, no, this is not the David. This is not the David that confronted the lion and the bear. That I have my weapons of warfare. And so I'm not going to allow myself to follow what Saul has brought. And so you ask yourself, what's the connection between bouncing up and your identity? You ask yourself, what's the connection? What's the bounce up connection? Applying your identity for transformation. That is the connection. You need to apply your identity for the transformation you desire. So I ask you, what are you believing about yourself that is not true? We have different belief systems. People believe different things. And some of them are not true. They might be the fact on the ground at that point, but that's not the truth. So what are you believing about yourself that is not true? Have you been trying to fit into an identity that is not yours? What has God said about you that you need to embrace? Because a common scripture in Amos 3:3 says, two cannot walk together except they are in agreement. And so there are steps to walk boldly in your identity. There are steps that when we begin to apply them, our true identity begins to come forth. Number one is that you renew your mind daily. Renew your mind daily. Stop defining yourself by your past. Meditate on scriptures about who you are in Christ. You open your Bible, you see the Bible talk about you from different points. I look back and I remember at a point in time, I opened the Bible at a time that I was, if I may use the word, at the lowest ebb. And then one day I opened the Bible and I saw Deuteronomy 28 verse 12, where he said that I shall lend to nations and not borrow. I shall be the head and not the tail, on top and not underneath. And I laughed. It sounded so ridiculous to me. I said, how can I? How is this thing possible? But I began to meditate on it. I began to put the words in my mouth and I began to say it. I'll close my eyes, see myself functioning at that level. And after some time, I'll come back to reality. I'll look around me. I was still in the same place. I kept doing it. I kept doing it. So you renew your mind daily. You renew your mind daily. Chioma, it's good to have you here. Idia, it's good to have you here. You renew your mind daily. You renew your mind daily. It's a mind renewal process. You know, the mind is like a garden. And so whatever you plant on it begin to grow. Words are things. Thoughts are things. So as you begin to plant them, they begin to grow. They begin to grow. And the second thing is making bold declarations of who you are. Making bold declarations, affirmations of who you are. And the third thing is imagination. See yourself in your mind functioning in that position. See yourself in your mind functioning in that position. The fourth one is take action with confidence. You take action with confidence. When you embrace your identity, start moving in that direction, even if fear is present. When you embrace your identity, start moving in that direction, even if fear is present. Even if fear is present. Limit Breaker, Edu Consult, is good to have you here. Thank you for joining. And number 5, you surround yourself with identity-affirming people. Align with those who see and support your God-given identity. Stop hanging around people that talk you down. Stop hanging around people whose one assignment is to keep bringing out the inadequacies in you. No. You begin to surround yourself with identity-affirming people. You begin to read books that will renew your mind. You begin to read books. There are quite a lot of books that begin to renew your mind. I look back and I remember one of those days in the midst of it, there was a book I bought by Ryan Holiday. The title of the book is The Obstacle is the Way. The Obstacle is the Way. I bought the book and I began to read it. At another time, I bought this powerful book, one of my best books, Rhoda Bryan, The Magic. I bought the book and I began to read it. It has 28 chapters. And each day, each chapter gives you an assignment. That was a mind renewal process. This particular book is based on gratitude. I would recommend it for anybody who wants to renew his mind. After the session, my mind was totally renewed. And so I want you to know that your breakthrough, your emergence in life is tied to your identity. The more you embrace who you truly are, the faster and stronger you'll bounce up. Because you can't be seeing yourself as a grasshopper and then you're going to confront a giant. You have lost the battle even before you started stepping out of your house. So you need to embrace who you truly are. And I want you at this point to take a moment to write down your true identity based on what God has said about you. Take out some time. Write your true identity. Forget what is happening for now at this point. Don't focus on it. Write who you truly are. I remember I was having a session with somebody and I'll talk and she would say me, sir, no be that one they do me. No be that one means that these things you're saying are not my problem. My problem is that I want this issue resolved. And I told the person, well, your desire is right, but I need you to know that problem no dey finish. Oh. By the time you finish resolving this one, another one is knocking at the door. What are you going to do about it? I remember there was a lady, she had issues with payment of her school fees for her final year. And then somebody sent her to me and we started talking. Every morning, I'll send her scriptures, words of affirmation. We were just going through the process. And I told her, look. You need to engage this thing on a daily basis. These assignments I am giving you, you need to do that with all seriousness. Because if you don't do that with all seriousness, by the time we come out of this and another one shows up, you might not be able to handle it. We went through on that. She was able to finish her exams and the rest of them. And the next thing, she closed the chapter. And in my mind, I laughed because I knew she was going to come back. I know say wahala no dey finish. About 6 months down the line, no, not up to 6 months, about 3 to 4 months down the line, one morning I saw her chat on my phone. Good morning, sir. And I laughed. I told myself, wahala don't come. I responded, how are you doing? She said, I'm fine. You know, this normal chat, the first day, the second day, I was waiting. And by the third day, she opened up, sir, I have a problem. The moment she opened up, I responded that I knew. I said, she said, how? I said, I knew. I've gone through this process a long time. I knew you will come back. I said, what's the problem? She narrated them from beginning to the end. And if you need to see how she was talking, all the things we had practiced, she had forgotten all of them. She was just talking. I said, but this problem is not as serious as the one we resolved some time ago. And you're supposed to have built capacity to handle this thing. He says, sir, you won't understand. I said, look, let's analyze this situation and the one that we resolved. Which one is more difficult? Which one is more challenging? She looked at it and said, sir, that one. I said, if God could do that one for you, he can also do this for you. But the thing is that you didn't follow through on the process. You lost consciousness of who you are. You allowed the situation to put you under his armpit and was just throwing you around. Meanwhile, you have the weapons. Meanwhile, you have the strategy. You know what to do. And you will level it with your mouth like a mountain. So I'm going to ask you, what resonated with you the most today? Drop that in the comment box. Whatever what resonated with you today, drop it in the comments, in the comment section. And also encourage you to share live sessions with this live session with others who need it. Today, the session is just going to be brief on an identity. So I need you to take time out. When you were a child, what were your thoughts like? When your mind hadn't been corrupted with issues around, when you have not been told on countless times that you cannot make it, when you have not been told on countless times that life is difficult, when you have not been told on countless times that look at you, you are this, you are that, what was your mind like? When your mind was still fresh and pure. You need to look back at it. I still look back and I remember some of the things I was saying as I was a child. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So an understanding of who we are is very, very important. It's going to help us in the bounce of process. Because with a true understanding of your identity, you can engage things. You can engage situations. You can engage crises. You can engage adversities, see them face to face and talk to them. That you are nothing but a light affliction that has worked out for me a far more eternal weight of glory. That you are nothing but a building block for my advancement to another level. You talk to it. You level the mountain with your mouth. You level the mountain with your mouth. And so I'll throw the floor open for some questions and answers. Are there people that have questions? Are there people that have questions? Charity or Dio, it's good to have you here today. Are there questions? Are there questions from the audience? Because most of the time in answering the questions, you bring out things. The clarification becomes better. In the process of asking questions, you teach better. You break down things better in more understandable patterns. So, what are the questions? What are the questions? Do we have any questions? Do you have any questions? I will encourage you to buy this book, The Magic by Rhoda Bryan. I encourage you to buy the book. I also encourage you to buy this one, The Obstacle is the Way. The Obstacle is the Way. It's by Ryan Holiday. These are powerful books that will strengthen you and then help you to actualize your destiny in its fullness. Okay, there's a question from Jennifer. It says, "Sir, how can we discover our identity when we are at our lowest point and struggle for motivation to discover ourselves?" How can we discover our identity when we are at our lowest point and struggle for motivation to discover ourselves? So how can you discover your identity? I just shared a story with you how I was at the lowest ebb, how I was lying down about 10 years after graduation. I wasn't sure of the next meal. And then in the place of processing that thought, that conversation, a thought dropped in my hand that began to give me an idea. But it didn't end with the conversation I had with myself. When I opened the Bible, I began to read. I began to see more of myself. As a matter of fact, there are far more than what I saw in the Bible about myself than that particular conversation. But that conversation was the starting point. It gave me an insight of who I am. Another way you can discover your identity is to go to your Creator. And how do you do that? You go to God in prayer. How do you do that? You go to God in prayer. You want to know more about yourself. What's your life purpose? What's the essence of your life, the essence of your being? And then in the place of prayer, He begins to give you understanding. And sometimes when people pray, they expect my son. This is no. When you pray, you read the Bible. You read your Bible, the answer can come in various forms. I remember it was a particular day I was watching TV and there was something that I saw. It was an answer. Like this book that I showed you people earlier. I had serious issues at that point. I had given somebody money to buy land for me. The person bought the land, kept the money, was telling me one story or the other. I had borrowed another person money, and these are people that I respect. So I was at a very low state at that point. I wasn't happy. And so one of my friends comes to the office and we're talking, and he had another book. I told him, I just read the introduction, read the back. I said, please, can you buy me this book? He said, okay. When he was coming, he bought this one. He didn't buy the exact one I told him to buy. He told me, sir, I can't find that one. This is the one I can find. And I opened it and began to read the book. The book was the clear answer that I needed. As a matter of fact, it did more than the positive situation I was trying to resolve. By the time I had come to the 10th day of reading the book, I was no more thinking about the land or the money matter. No, I had gone beyond that. I had gone beyond that. So that's what we're saying, that it's not a question of bouncing back, coming back to the status quo. That's a short change. That's a short change. There's something higher. There's something higher. And you can't reach out for something higher if you don't know it exists. You can't reach out for something higher if you don't know it exists. You need to know something exists, and that's when you can reach for it. So that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. So how do you motivate yourself? Let me tell you people a story. I don't know if I shared it before. There was a time I had issues with my accommodation. I was living in my office space. I lived in that office space for quite some time. So, but for the initial months, I'll come and I'll stand, I will be angry. NEPA used to take light. Power holding used to take light by 2 a.m. And so because it was a shop, there was no cross ventilation. There was mosquito, there was heat, a lot of things. It was very, very uncomfortable. So I'll wake up and I'll sit down and I'll begin to complain, murmur, complain, how life wasn't fair, how this wasn't fair, how this one, everything was unfair to me. And then one night, the same thing happened. And I sat up and I started complaining. And a thought dropped in my heart. Can't you see that this thing is not working? I asked, what is not working? He said, you have been complaining for weeks, for months. Nothing has changed. Can't you see it is not working? I said, so what do I do? He said, you go to church every Sunday. Every Wednesday, you go for midweek service. I said, yes. He said, those songs you sing, start singing it. I started singing. By the time I was finishing one song, another one will come. Another one will come. Another one will come. Another one will come. Before I knew it, I looked at the clock. It was 5 a.m. I had sang and praised God consistently for 3 good hours. Nothing happened on the outside, but inside me, something had happened. I was happy. I was excited. So the following night, I woke up again. It was a process. So I started looking forward to the night more than the daytime, because the experiences I was having, nobody can take it from me. Those experiences are part of the building blocks of my life. I lived in that office space for 3 years. I don't look back at it with any form of regret whatsoever. Without those experiences, I doubt if I will be here. It taught me a lot of things. And so, what you do, you want to motivate yourself. Lock the door and start singing. Lock the door and start singing. Motivation doesn't come from outside. If you go for a session and then comedians, they make you laugh and laugh and laugh, the comedy session will end. You're watching a movie and the movie is keeping your mind alive. The movie will end. So when the movie ends, what happens? Come in contact with your Creator. Come in contact with Him. And then joy will begin to flow from the inside of you. That is why when I say that bouncing up is an inside job, I am talking from experience. You have to bounce up inside before it comes outside. It is what is inside that will produce what others will see. So that's it. My take is that's Christy John Gunn. My take is that I should be consistent in my positive confession of who God has made me based on my discovery of my identity from His word. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Jennifer again. He says, can the people we surround ourselves with disrupt us from the... Of course. She asks, can the people we surround ourselves with disrupt us from discovering our identities? Of course. Of course. I used to have a friend. When he calls me, from the moment he calls me to the time he finishes the conversation, is from one level of lamentation to the other. So the moment when he calls me, I'll tell myself that lamentation has come. He will lament and lament and lament. And most of the time, I get sad after having a conversation with him. And what did I do? When he called me, I stopped picking the call. At a point, I had to block him because he was infusing negative energy that was corrupting my system. So when you surround yourself with people with the right energy, you flow together. When you surround yourself with people with the wrong energy, even if you are here, after some time, they bring you down to their level. So listen, association is by choice. So you decide who you flow with. This is no longer the era when somebody walks up and wants to be your friend. And then you're say because he wants. No. If someone that is not going anywhere wants to be your friend, you should know that if you join him, before you know it, all of you will start going nowhere. So association is very important. Charity says, please may I know the name of the book. There are two books. One is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. The Obstacle is the Way. The second one is The Magic by Rhoda Bryan. The Magic. They are very important books. Sir, can you explain if discovering one's identity cuts across people from all religious belief or favors people of a particular religious belief? All of us are sons and daughters of God. All of us were created by the same God, the Most High. So, if you want to know who you are, you talk to the ultimate creator, the maker of heaven and earth, him that knew you before you were formed, before you were planted in your mother's womb. You talk to him. You talk to him. You talk to him. You talk to him. And so, what's the time? Wow. And so, gentlemen and ladies, it's been a wonderful time. And I've been having a great time. And I strongly believe you too have been having a great time. The last two sessions, we talked about unmasking failure. The last one, demystifying fear. This one, we looked at identity and your place, the place of identity in your bouncing up. You need to know who you are because life will ask you questions. So when life asks you questions, you are not sure of who you are. That's when you start murmuring. That's when you begin to flow with diverse doctrines. They'll tell you to go here, they'll tell you to go there. I remember there was a point in my life when I lost my brothers. And then one lady walked up to me and began to say certain things. You need to do this, you need to do that. You need to do this, you need to do that. When she was saying those things, I was just laughing because I knew who I am. I know who I am. The fact that I lost my brothers doesn't mean that who I am has changed. My identity is still intact. If I didn't know who I was, I would have begun to give consideration. And not long after that, I think about 2 days after that lady came and said those things, one of my friends in school, my roommate, very intelligent guy, he calls me and we're having a discussion. He says, okay, I know people are going to call you. They are going to tell you this, tell you that, tell you this. I told him that they've already started saying it. Oh. He said, they told me the same thing when I lost my brothers. He said, but that's not the way. That doesn't change who you are. My identity, no matter the adversity, no matter the challenge, is intact. I know who I believe. And it is only that person you believe in that can tell you who you are. You can't go to Toyota and begin to ask questions about Ford. If you want to know more about Ford, you go to the manufacturer of Ford. That's where we're going to end today's session. Keep bouncing up. Keep bouncing up. The sky is just the beginning. All things are working out together for your good. I also encourage you to keep following our daily posts because we'll break these things down. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, on LinkedIn, and also on our YouTube channel. Some of these videos will be posted there. Some of the presentations I had made at different times. When you go to our YouTube channel, you'll have access to them. God bless you all and have a wonderful time. Thank you.